Hello there. This is Sherry Simpson coming to you on the 26th of January. So it's a 268 day, and I ended up displaying a couple of numerology cards, and I actually got a laugh because when I turned one over, I also displayed them with some essential oils. So my name is Sherry Simpson. I'm a transformational life coach. I also do psychic work, tarot card readings. I use essential oils. I work with those. I also work with crystals and numerology and all of this good metaphysical stuff. And spirit animals are big for me. The ants and the hummingbirds have been loud in my life recently, so I've been looking those up and checking into those. Today is the 26th day of January, and I'm looking down at the cards here. That's why I keep looking this way. And I had a laugh because the first one that I turned over was the number 26. So if you picked the number 1 card, it was ZenGest. And what that means is possibly that your actual digestion is not moving as well as you would like it to. And so I like to use essential oils. This is a blend that I use. That has some peppermint and other things in it that can actually help your digestion. But one of the things on a mental and emotional level is that we don't normally digest the things that are going on around us, and that can cause issues actually with digestion, even if the things that you're eating and the things that you're drinking are fine. Or sometimes people just aren't drinking enough water, so they're actually like more dehydrated. But I find things like essential oils will raise our vibration. So if you chose the ZenGest, then perhaps you need to think about how you are digesting, and the card that came up was love partnerships. So I want you to check in with how it is that you are digesting your sense of love. And 26 is, it reduces to an 8. So 2 is interesting that this is love partnerships, because 2 is about 2 people coming together. And so if we were to think about it as a business rather than a partnership, then it would be the idea coming into one, or you independently coming in as a one in a love relationship. And when you add a 2, you're adding in a second person. When you add a 2 into something like a business, you're adding in another person to question mark your ideas and find some stabilization. So that is what you're also doing as part of the 2 in a love partnership, is you're actually taking 2 of you, doing a little dance together and finding a stable bottom. That's why I like the shape of the 2. And the 6 is very interesting when they come together. So normally with numerology, each of the numbers, even though they combine to be an 8, has some meaning. So the 6 comes after 5, and 5 is about big transformation. And normally a 6 is about nurturing and loving and caring and sharing. But after a big transformation, the 6, you see the 6 pattern. The 6 is like sort of a wobbly, like a rocker sort of thing. So it's actually about finding stabilization within a partnership. And so this is what the sense of this card is for me today. It's actually digesting how things are going with you in terms of love or love partnership. If you're not in a love partnership, it could be that you're either reassessing the relationship that you have with yourself or your source, or you calling in perhaps a love relationship. So you want to think about what you want, the questions you want to ask, and the stable base you want to create from a love partnership. And then when we are not in a partnership and we are going into one, it's a big transformation from a 5 to be single and to a 6 to move into a love partnership. So how are you still nurturing yourself? How are you caring for yourself? How are you balancing and rocking around that relationship? And so this reduces to an 8, which is what today is. And again, that's very interesting because today's the 26th, and the card I pulled first was a 26, and I didn't even realize it. But an 8 is about infinity. So if you think about the 8, it's the infinity side on both sides. The 8 often has to do with personal power and leadership and strength. So you want to always make sure that when you're going into a love partnership that you are staying yourself. So if you think about an 8, you want to think about the center point of that 8 actually being you, staying cohesive and allowing one of those bubbles to be you and one to be your partner, or allowing your highest self and your human self to actually come together at a center point. So perhaps that's what you needed to know about a love partnership. If you're in a love partnership and you're not digesting things as well in that today, then I want you to really think about, you know, what questions do I want to ask? What kind of stable base do I want to create? If there's change and transformation that has just happened, then how can I be more nurturing and more stable to myself and the other person to create that balance that happens in the 8. So taking that as your guidance today for love partnership. If you chose Slim and Sassy, Slim and Sassy is a great, it's for cravings. I used it, oh goodness, probably about 2 years ago now when I was going through issues with my thyroid and I had a lot of candida. So I was like totally craving ice cream like all the time, and cookies and stuff like that. Even though I was gluten-free by then, I was still craving a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of sugar. And so partly that is about, do I have enough sweetness in my life? And the Smart and Sassy was something that I used in order to totally ditch sugar cravings. So I ended up adding drops to my water, and after the drops were added in my water, I found that I ended up increasing the drops from maybe 1 drop per water bottle. Every couple of days I'd add another drop, so then I'd be drinking 2 drops per water bottle per day, and then 3 drops, and I got up to about 8, and that took me 2 to 3 weeks. By the time I got probably to the 2-week mark, I had stopped buying ice cream and didn't even realize it. By the time I got to week 3, I just stopped using the drops because I was like, oh, I'm not even craving anything anymore. So this worked like magic for me. But when it comes to the numerology of this, it is a 2, but it's in reverse. So perhaps we are very eager to become smart and sassy or slim and sassy, or to become less attached to our cravings, and we're trying to do it overnight. We didn't create your craving overnight, so perhaps you're not actually getting into a place where you're being patient with yourself. This card is a vibrant orange color, which is the 2nd chakra. And as the 2nd chakra, it is where you birth babies. It is also where you birth ideas and concepts and creativity, and where you birth an abundance over what you need for just survival. So perhaps you are craving things in life that are not necessarily like digestive, like actual like carbohydrates and sugar and salt, but perhaps you're craving more abundance or more stability or more of something else. And it seems like you're being impatient with that, and so it's asking you to be more patient. But this is also making me think that it's time for you to draw in more creativity about what it is that you want to birth. So thinking about what it is that you're craving, and being patient and creative with how to birth the newness in to whatever it is that you're craving. That's what that makes me think for the 2 card today. The next one, I think we had balance that was on the far side, so I don't remember what number that was. I should check. And balance is obviously about a lot of things. I'm just going to check in what actual number that was so that I'm using the numbers correctly for you if you gave me a number. I have a feeling this was a 3. Oh, I did 1 first and then 3. So this is actually the what I labeled the 2 on the image. So what I labeled the 2 on the image was the balance card. And for me, balance is very interesting because it's balance in a lot of things. And so I like to use this, which is a blend on the bottoms of my feet, because it feels like it grounds me. And it actually has a really like balancing, calming smell. So if you find yourself like floating around like a bubble in your head and thinking a ton of thoughts, this is very grounding, but it's not overly earthy. So if you don't necessarily like all the overly earthy scents, then this brings in a little bit of ylang-ylang and some other things that are grounding and balancing. And this makes me think balancing the head to the heart, makes me think balancing the spiritual life to the physical life. It also makes me think balancing the masculine and the feminine, which brings me to the card. The card that came up was relationship change, but it came in reverse. And so relationship change as a 5-6, it reduces to an 11. And of course, we're in an 11 year. So a 5 is about transformation. And I talked a little bit about that in this video already. And transformation can be a lot of big change and a lot of big growth and a lot of releasing and a lot of letting go. And then the 6 is getting used to where you are. And when it comes to relationships, when we change things and get used to where we are, we still need to figure out how the two, because it reduces to an 11, how the two people either are splitting up as the 11 and going their separate ways, or reducing again to a 2 and changing the way that a relationship is, but staying together. So a relationship in this change in reverse makes me think that it either has to happen and you're not allowing it, so you're resisting it, so it's way out of balance in some way, and you need to bring some balance into your concept, possibly first, of relationships that need to change within yourself or with others. And because this is just relationship change and not love partnership, which we got before, then this makes me think any relationship. So if you're having challenges with your relationship with yourself, with your relationship with your highest self and your human self, with relationships with your colleagues, friends, partners, and lovers, then something needs to shift. And it's about bringing a balance into the relationship as you change it, because right now it feels like the relationship that's changing or needs to change needs balance. So these go together for me in terms of what is it that you want. Do you need to bring this to an 11 where two people are going separate and it's actually a relationship change? Or do you need to actually bring the 11 back down to a 2, because this would reduce to a 2, where you're staying together but finding a balance? So I'm getting the sense that it's up to you. You have free will. You can make this decision any way you want. But it needs to be a decision that you're making from your heart for your highest good. So most of us are people pleasers, and we always want to do what everyone else wants, rather than actually getting into a place of, no, I am doing this whole dance in life, in this human body, because I am here to do this for me. Yes, I'm a giver, and yes, I want to do a ton of things for other people, which is that right side. But I also need to be open to receiving and giving to myself. So that give and receive needs to be balanced. And giving to other people and making other people as important as me. And so one of the things that I had to learn when I was going through my thyroid issues, so I had an overactive thyroid, which was an autoimmune disorder. The endocrinologist labeled me as having Graves' disease. And I pretty much told him to take a hike. I took some of his pills for a while and weaned myself off of those. And then I learned that I was people pleasing, and I learned that I had to balance, and I learned that relationship that I had with myself on my masculine and feminine side, and my physical, like human side, and my spiritual side were way off. So I ended up having to learn the whole dance with the relationship and balance as well. And before I learned that dance as the people pleaser, I literally had issues with authority. And so I would be like totally covered in sweat, covering the moving through the Canada-U.S. border. So if I was going through customs at any time, I was like drenched with sweat. And I've never done anything in order to I've never even done any drugs. I've never done anything to bring on a situation where I should be that afraid of authority. If a cop passed me, or if there was one behind me, I would be like totally stressed out, like, oh my God, there's a cop behind me. And it's so interesting about authority. And so that actually had to change and balance within myself. But another thing that I noticed while I was going through that was that I had a tendency to put myself in a hole. And so the rest of the planet was at ground level and I was in the basement. So the Scorpio in me was living in the catacombs within myself, but all of the rest of the human planet was actually above. And so whenever I saw people or I saw myself in relationships, I always saw myself as less than or lower, and I sort of looked up to everyone. And I knew that that relationship had to change within myself and it had to balance so that I was on equal ground. And that means I'm on equal ground with Oprah, I'm on equal ground with Trump, I'm on equal ground with my neighbor and the guy who lives under the bridge down the road. Like, I'm on equal ground with the entire planet. So that shift had to happen. So I want you to think about all of the relationships that are going on and needing balance within you and around you. So that is the call that I got for the number 2 card today. The number 3 card that came through, the essential oil on it is Zendocrine. This one I wish I had known about when I was experiencing extreme adrenal fatigue, because Zendocrine means that you are zenning and relaxing your entire endocrine system. And I had issues with my kidneys in a way, because kidneys are the detoxifier in the body. So if you're having issues with your digestion, then you may also need some Zendocrine to balance the zen within you. And it will balance the entire endocrine system. So another thing that was going on with me at the same time that I was healing myself was that my body as a female decided to shut off for an entire year. So that means that my endocrine glands were telling me, you are not capable of carrying a baby right now, so we're going to shut off all possibility of that happening. So my cycle just stopped and I became androgynous for like a whole year. So it would have been nice to be able to balance this with something like Zendocrine when that was going on. I had balanced it before I found Zendocrine, and now I use this in order to continue the dance and keep myself balanced. So obviously we're dealing a lot with balance and partnership and patience and relationships and whatnot on this 26th day if all of these cards and oils have come up. So the interesting thing that came up with this is that the Zendocrine oil was connected to time out. And time out is a 3-7. And we look at the colors. So I'm going to pull in the chakra colors as well as the numerology and a sense of what this all means for you. So a 3, we've been through what the 2 means. The 2 is actually a partnership with 2 people coming together. So a 3 would be like finding a triangle that is more balanced, but also bringing in a 3rd. So if you're talking about a family, you might be bringing in a baby. So it'd be like adding another person or expanding the group. Because the 3 is connected to the 7 is like lightning manifestation. So if you think about it, about things coming across from the spirit world and down into the physical world really quickly, that's kind of how I see the 7. When you add the 3 and the 7 together, it's a 1, which is new beginnings. And that brings me to planting seeds. So at a new beginning, when you're planting a seed, you don't dig it up and make sure the seed is growing and then put the soil back over. You just wait. You have patience. You actually, which is funny because we had this card as well. But this card comes up as are you being patient? Do you need to actually stop and zen for a little bit, because your endocrine glands might be saying you're working too hard? Are you actually taking time for yourself? Yes, you're going to the gym and working out. Maybe you're doing all of these things, but are you actually getting into an Epsom salts bath and relaxing? Are you taking some time for yourself in nature, not just to walk through the forest and get your exercise and cardio, but are you actually sitting down and enjoying the in the moment time. So the colors in this card being purple, and this one is more indigo, so these ones are more third eye. So this is the color of these two were more about the color of connecting in and channeling information about myself and my past lives, and allowing my gut to speak. This brings me more to the crown and actually allowing us more to connect to source, connect to something greater and bigger than ourselves. So a lot of times when we're not Zen and we're going all crazy and doing all these things, we're connected to the planet very extremely, and we're not open to what source is telling us. We're not taking that time out to actually see that we're all connected, and that your endocrine system is all connected, and that you're not actually being patient with yourself and with life and enjoying being in the moment. And this is also yellow, which comes up as the confidence, personal power. So perhaps you actually need to check in with, where am I out of balance within my system of personal power? So this is about confidence and being confident in yourself. So perhaps you're just doing and doing and doing and doing, but you're not actually listening to your gut and then acting on your gut. You're not acting on things that are for your greatest and highest good. And if you kind of want to, then you can shut things off. And I'm getting the sense that the throat might be connected, but that's likely because it was definitely connected for myself. So if I think about the connections between things, I talked about an 8 earlier, and technically today is a 26/8 day. I like to see the 8 as being a pattern that I can shift. So if you think about where the center of the 8 is, then you can actually move where the 8 is connecting at any given time in order to connect things in the body. So I get the sense that you could actually move the connection of the 8 where the bottom is at your personal power. The center is actually at your throat and speaking your truth and doing that in a way in new beginnings that you haven't done before. And the top of the 8 is actually bringing the source and the connection at the crown into your personal power. So allowing that to actually come through. I know a lot of people actually do the 8 at the heart, and I'm actually, for this particular card in this particular instance, I'm thinking that it belongs in the throat today. The heart is probably wide open, which is probably why you actually need the time out, because you're overgiving and overgiving and overdoing, and your endocrine system has now said, I need more Zen, I need more time out, I need more playtime. So you need to ask for that and take that time for yourself and be confident that your gut is actually telling you and your crown is actually telling you this is what we need. Just relax for a few minutes, and then it's almost as though we get a shot of personal power when that happens, because it's as though we get filled up rather than being empty. And that brings us into a state of more Zen, and then we can move into more balance into life. So I'm going to go through those quickly again so that you have them. So the number 1 card was love partnership. So perhaps you are not balancing your love partnership properly, or I don't want to say properly, I want to say safely, balancing it safely. Digest Zen coming up with your love partnership makes me think that you're just not digesting things within either a future love partnership that you want to call in, or a current one where things are just upsetting and out of balance. So this is your closest relationships, and this card is about bringing the information in from the third eye in your closest relationships. So that 26 was the number 1 card. The number 2 card was the balance and the relationship change. And so allowing yourself to be a part of all the decisions that you make in relationships, allowing your masculine and feminine side to be balanced, and allowing the source higher self part of you to balance with the human self, is what this comes up as. And because this does reduce to an 11, it does make me think that there's two people involved or two things involved. So you're definitely balancing two things. And it came in reverse. So that makes me think that if you bring more balance to your relationships, they'll actually be, they'll actually feel better. They'll actually feel more like you can channel more information and more resonance through once you are balancing relationships. The number 3 card that came through was the Slim and Sassy, which is about carb cravings and sweetness and salty and things like that, and having patience with yourself in that way. And the orange is the sacral closest relationships with the number 2 chakra color, the sacral chakra. But it also makes me think patience with your carbohydrate cravings. And I'm wondering too, when I'm saying this, if there's a swing going on. So sometimes people can swing between not feeling like they don't weigh enough, because this has to do with balancing your weight as well, and weighing too much. So people end up swinging back and forth between two extremes. And this also makes me think, are you craving things like sugar and then you're switching everything around and craving things like salt? So one of the things I did or do now as well with my own cravings or my own balancing sense in my digestion and being patient with myself is, if I have a headache coming on, then I get the sense that I actually need to drink more water, but the water needs to stay in my body. So I will often add salt to my meals, not table salt, so not iodized salt, but actually the real salt, like Himalayan salt or sea salt. And then if I'm craving things that are super sugary, sometimes I'll allow myself to have those, but I'll actually add salt to it, so it's balancing for me. So I'm actually balancing things, but they don't happen overnight. So your sugar cravings aren't going to go away in a day. Your candida, if that's what you have, isn't going to go away in a day. And you need to have some patience with what is going on with your cravings. And if this might tie into relationships as well, because it's been a big relationship day. So just having some patience and bringing some patience in with the things that you're craving or the things that seem to be swinging out of balance. And the last one that came in was the 37 card, which is timeout. So making sure that you are allowing yourself to zen. And one of the things I mentioned earlier was, if you're going to the gym and doing all of these crazy things, that you're actually taking some time to stretch, that you're taking some time to do an Epsom salts bath, that you're taking some time to get into the sauna or the hot tub and literally take a time out and just relax. That allows you to bring yourself into that place of confidence and personal power, because you're not giving it away to everyone else. But it also allows you to connect in to that area of the crown and what it is that your highest self is looking for. So it's a connection to something bigger and greater to yourself. Lots of messages coming through today. So hopefully that was helpful. I love sharing information, so if there's any comments or questions that you have, I do readings in a bigger way. So I do readings for people about pets. I do them about your love partnerships. I can do them about whether to sell or buy a house and what is going on with you there. And one of my favorite readings is medical intuition, where I actually tap into your body. And what I do with the cards is I actually lay them down in the shape of the human body and then bring in information that way based on legs and arms and digestion and calves and whatever body part comes through as I'm doing that. So that's a fun and very actually deep and meaningful reading for most people. So I can place those links around, or if you have comments and questions, then that's great. So I hope that was helpful. Hopefully you are feeling more zen and more balanced, and that you got exactly what you needed today. So namaste. Have a beautiful day wherever you are.